This is CreationWatch, though. This is we we look at people who claim that the Earth and the universe in itself had a little bit more to it than natural resources to generate it, and some of the claims that get tagged along with that. Now, this segment does cross over quite a bit with our Cryptic Corner segment, but not often because, or not often, it does often, but often some subjects that toe the line are a little bit more out there, and demand a little more scrutiny from a supernatural point of view. So today we're going to look at someone explaining their trip to the afterlife to us and kind of getting an idea of what the claims that they're making is. So hang in there with me. This is an interesting one, I'll just say that. And there's some claims that I want to break open and kind of look at. So let's see here. It says it's going to give us goosebumps. So let's give them a chance to give us some goosebumps. Now it's going to open with some other people, but the main person that's going to talk about is this Dr. Eben Alexander.
I think 90% of people believe there is an afterlife.
I faded out, like, from reality, and
the next thing after that I remember was seeing myself on the emergency table, and they were working on me, trying to revive me.
being brought up this tunnel of light.
I was feeling all this love and this acceptance.
An hour later, the doctor came out and she said she was fine. And out of nowhere, she just asked when she can see God again.
Most people are raised to believe that we are born, we age, and then we die. It's the natural cycle of life to death. Easy to see and understand, but what do you believe happens after we die? This is where opinion splits. Some have spiritual practices or experiences that describe our afterlife. Some believe in what they can see, touch, and measure. But can your beliefs on the afterlife change? I wasn't sure until I heard of Dr. Eben Alexander, a neurosurgeon who went through a near-death experience in 2008.
He was a man of science. He didn't believe in it.
When I was younger, I thought a heaven and a loving God made sense, but through my academic neurosurgery career, I saw less and less that could be the case.
He's a neurosurgeon, so, he's going to make his case here, and we're going to see if we're convinced that there's an afterlife, okay? Oh, Natasha knows me so well. Yeah, this is we're gonna talk about hallucinations in neuroscience.
I started out in a primitive earthworm eye view, very coarse, unresponsive realm,
primitive earthworm. He uses that term a lot too. I don't know if I've ever thought that we were comparable to earthworms. We have very different evolutionary trajectory.
I think in retrospect was the best consciousness my brain could muster when it was soaking in pus and the neocortex, the human part of the brain, was being destroyed. But then I was rescued from that by a slowly spinning white light into a beautiful, ultra-real, idyllic valley filled with life and growing plants with butterflies.
Oh, good. Here's where we start getting into some of the claims here. So, when we see people talking about heaven, that's one of the things that a lot of people talk about is flowers and butterflies. Very beautiful, serene kind of settings, right? But flowers are reproductive organs of plants, of angiosperm plants. Is there reproduction in heaven? Is this something that's like, do the plants flower? If there's no reproduction, why are they flowering? The color of flowers and the shape of flowers are designed to attract pollinators to carry their pollen from one flower to another and cross-pollinate them to allow them to reproduce with genetic diversity. So, if there's flowers in heaven, is there a reproductive cycle? And butterflies in and of themselves are pollinators, and that's what they do. Is they carry their reproductive transportation for. So even if there's immortal butterflies, what purpose are they serving? That's the whole. This when it comes to insects, the adult form is a short-lived, generally speaking, a short-lived part of their life. They're not like tetrapods. They don't grow up to their adult size and then spend the majority of their life in that form. They spend the majority of their life in their adolescent form, I guess is what we could compare it to for tetrapods, in their infant form, in caterpillar form, in grub form, whatever you want to call it. Depends on the clade of insects. With butterflies, it's caterpillars. But yeah, they spend a great deal of their life in that stage. And this adult form is just their final stage. So I don't understand why what butterflies would be doing in heaven. Yeah. So do you think that a paleologist says, I mean, the Bible does say that there are trees in life, is going in fruit and stuff. So there is reproduction going on in heaven. That's biblical. Will you please give me those verses, babe? I couldn't find anything about it. I appreciate it, because this is a portion of this topic that I am always like scratching my head about, like when people talk about heaven, because it seems like that there's an ecosystem in heaven or of some kind. But I don't know if it's just a representative ecosystem, or if it's like supposed to be an objective ecosystem.
Sparkling pools of water, angelic choirs up above, emanating tremendous, awesome, and joy and beauty in these incredible anthems, chants, and hymns that came down from above, and then ascended up beyond that.
See, so some of this stuff, he's saying it's maybe he's saying it's representative, because I mean, to him it's butterflies and fields of flowers, but to someone else it might be white fluffy clouds and golden fountains, something like that. That maybe it's subjective to each individual's description, or the way that they feel like the afterlife should look from their cultural upbringing that they experience. Because understand, my opinion is that when we die, the energies that run our body, the electrical impulses and all that stuff, dissipate into the atmosphere. They don't of course not destroyed. That energy goes back into the system, and so does all the matter that makes up your body. It eventually finds its way back into the system as well. Beautiful process. I'm not disparaging this as a idea to view the afterlife as, dissipating and going back into the system, because I find that comforting for me. That's why I identify as I haven't figured out what to call it, a Gaian atheist, where I believe we're all part of one big giant superorganism that's billions of years old, and are all that make up what we are as an organic organism, and a being is and of itself as a whole. Oh, it's Revelations. Okay. Thank you, Peter. I will look at those verses. I'm not disagreeing with you. Because I always hear people talking about butterflies and flowers and stuff. And mostly you hear that as more of a neutral position, because people who, with a more Abrahamic belief, they'll often see Christ, or something along those lines instead. See Christ in a white, at the end of a white tunnel, things like that, or Christ, or they saw grandma in Christ, or their loved one standing with Jesus, things like that. And then people, of course, it gets cultural to other people who have near-death experiences as well. So I don't believe near-death, whether or not there's an afterlife, and I don't believe in an afterlife either, just to be blunt. But I don't think that that refuting NDEs doesn't say anything about an afterlife. I'm going to say that right now. I'm not out to refute the existence of an afterlife in this stream. What I'm out to do at this moment is to to look at near-death experiences and how they're reported and what I think causes the phenomena. So I don't think this has anything to do with the afterlife when we talk about near-death experiences at all.
Into realms beyond all time and space.
During his experience, he was taken to a heaven-like place where everything he thought he knew about neuroscience was proven wrong. Shortly after, he wrote the best-selling book titled Proof of Heaven. What I find fascinating about this particular
I can't buy the book because I'm broke right now, but if anybody wants to buy me the book, I will read it. If anybody wants to buy any of the media that I talk about on these, all I would be able to do right now would be to read excerpts from it. I don't think that would do it justice. So I'm not going to respond to anything he says in his book. I'm just going to respond to what he's saying in this video.
near-death experience is Dr. Eben's scientific background. His understanding of the brain and the way he's able to expertly describe what happened to him. Hear it in his words.
I woke up about 4:30 in the morning with severe back pain, headache, and then the next thing my family knew is I was lapsed into general epileptic seizures. I was in grand mal status, which meant I was just seizing and completely unconscious, and that's when they called the EMTs, took me off to the Lynchburg General Hospital emergency room, and did a lumbar puncture. Out came thick white pus under pressure. My neurologic exam showed devastation. The reality is I just went deep into coma, and it was a severe case of E. coli bacterial meningitis, which is a real shocker because almost all cases of E. coli meningitis occur in newborns. It's very...
That is terrifying. That is a terrifying illness to come down with.
Rare to encounter it beyond the age of 3 months. You know, how did this happen? And then I deteriorated through that week on 3 powerful antibiotics. They'd had me on a ventilator from the get-go. One of the unusual features of my near-death experience is that I was amnesic. I had no memory of Eben Alexander's life. I had no language, no words, no knowledge of Earth, this universe. It was a completely empty slate, and that's quite unusual for an NDE, but I think it was important in teaching me some of the deeper lessons. My brain was shut down. There's something called the Glasgow Coma Scale that you use to measure coma. Anybody in this room would score a 15. That means they're doing great. If you're a corpse, you get a 3. Anything below 9 is deep coma. And for the vast majority of that week in coma, I was around a 6 or 7, sometimes as low as a 5. So I was in deep coma the whole time. They had CT and MRI scan data showing that all 8 lobes of my brain were affected. No part was spared. And that's why to have an extraordinarily rich experience, far more real than any...
This terrifying to think that, you know, you can just suddenly get sick like that. Well, ring plants are definitely having sex in heaven. If there's flowers, the plants are having sex in heaven and reproducing. Yeah, as far as the butterflies, they may be immortal. I don't know. I don't know how the butterflies work, but the flowers and fruit indicate that there's a life cycle there for food. I guess that food's only eaten for pleasure, though, because you can really like starve to death.
Anything I'd ever experienced in my life completely violates everything I thought I knew about brain, mind, and
Because you need a conscious brain to experience.
But no, you don't. The brain is a filter. Its main function is actually to restrict consciousness down to this tiny little illusion of kind of self. And
yeah, so we like, and he's not wrong here. I mean, when he's a neuroscientist, he knows what he's talking about here with the way that your brain restricts what we see. It's like we don't see all the spectrums of light. It's like the flowers I was just talking about. Those flowers look freaking gorgeous to us, but to bugs and birds, to pollinators, they look freaking magnifique. We can't even imagine how beautiful they look to them or what they even look like to them because they see an entirely different spectrum of light. We can only replicate it by altering the way the rest of the environment looks in comparison to the flowers. We can't even get a clear visual representation of what they see, right? So there's parts of the world and the way that they can be perceived that we don't have access to because it would overload our circuits, I guess, in a way. Like seeing in a spectrum of ultraviolet may limit our ability to see in spectrums of infrared, which allows us to, being colorblind is problematic as a frugivore because you want to be able to see red, right? You want to be able to see red among the green because that's why those fruits are red. That's why they're red like that, so that they can say, hey, come eat me and spread my seeds. That's part of a process, a reproductive process. We are part of a reproductive process for plants. Anyway, yeah, so we are limited in the way that we can perceive and interact with the world around us. The frequencies we can hear, the light levels that we can see, the color spectrum that we can see. Our tactile experiences are limited to certain grain levels, right? We can only feel, to a certain degree, we can only feel smoothness with our big fat sausage fingers, but there are finer grains and contours to the world than that, to the physical world that we interact with, right? There are energy frequencies that we can't see. There are some energy frequencies that we can't sense consciously, but our body unconsciously senses, like gravitational forces and things like that. There's a balance in your inner ear that you don't even think about until you get spun around. But the whole time you're experiencing that, that's not objective. That's subjective to you. That gravity is down. Without that, you are just disarticulated and not disarticulated. What's the word I'm looking for? Disarticulated. It's like they do to it, like spreading out a skeleton. It's what like sea lions don't have this issue. Their world is 3D. They up and down. It's totally different for them. Please give me that word that I'm trying to think of because it's going to keep escaping me. I know Purple and Ring and Peter and all these smart people are out there. Y'all know the word I'm looking for. Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to the video. I'm rambling.
Non-self, all the stuff out there, and a here and now. But so much of that is really a fiction.
Hey, Maya.
You step over from this world into the next. What happened?
Well, for me, that journey began in a very primitive, coarse, unresponsive realm.
Maya, you missed the circling sheep. It was our cryptic corner for today. It was a weird one. Kyle, you missed it too. You guys have to go. I'll re-release it. I'm probably going to bump it up on the schedule because it's topical. But yeah, the circling of the sheep, and I think I blew the lid off of it. But what do you guys think? Maybe I didn't. Maybe I did a bad job. But anyway, now we're talking about visiting the afterlife.
It was like being in dirty jello. I called it the earthworm's eye view. And I was there for a very long period of time. I'm sure I didn't have any kind of memory formation moment to moment. So it seemed to last forever. But the good news is it didn't. I was rescued by this slowly spinning, pure white light with fine silvery and golden tendrils. And as it came towards me, I realized it came with a perfect musical melody. Not music heard with the ears, because in those realms, our awareness goes far beyond the limitations of physical eyes and ears and a physical brain.
See, that's what I'm talking about. He's getting into some music of the inner stuff now, so that's pretty telling of kind of experience this is. He's probably considering this music that he's being heard, that is being heard through his spirit, maybe.
Brain. But the good news is that beautiful spinning white light opened up into a brilliant.
Yeah, you can go there, Maya, on vacation. Apparently, there's this pink-haired prophet of the Lord named Kat Kerr who goes there all the time, and there's like, she was talking about like water slides and stuff. I think. I'm imagining the water slides are through maybe strawberry rivers or nacho cheese rivers would be pretty cool too. I love me some nacho cheese.
Ultra-real realm that I call the Gateway Valley. And that was filled with many Earth-like features. It was a world of perfection and ideals. There was no death or decay anywhere. Beautiful, lush plant life, flowers, buds on trees, blossoms, colors beyond the...
Yeah, there's buds on trees and blossoms, so there are reproductive cycles that are happening in heaven. There is an ecology, it sounds like. Is the ecology the same or similar to ours? Are the physics the same and similar to ours? Are the plants subject to the forces of gravity that causes up and down? Do we retain our sense of up and down? Because he's talking about being awoken to new. Are we seeing the new color spectrums? Because we're no longer limited to our human eyes, where we are only able to experience the world through the narrow scope of our brain receptors and our senses that we have available to us. Once released from those and not restrained by that human body, are we able to see all these spectrums of light? Are we experiencing gravity? Are the substances of this world the same? Or if we look at the chemical makeup of the rocks, if we look up the genetics of the plants, are they the same as they are on Earth? Are the plants in heaven and the plants that you experience, the flowers, are those flowers that lived and died on Earth and now live immortal in heaven? The butterflies, are they immortal butterflies, or that are just native to this heavenly landscape, or are they butterflies that died in our ecosystem? Is the light the light spectrums in heaven the same? Is the light made up of the same different wavelengths and all that stuff? I have so many questions about the representation of heaven and why it would be subject to the laws of physics for our physical world, why our perceptions would be limited to those that have evolved to perceive our physical world, and if we're going into the afterlife, how are all these things perceived, and how is he able to process them back to how they would be perceived to a human mind?
Rainbow, I was a speck of awareness on a butterfly wing among millions of butterflies, looping and spiraling in vast formations above this Gateway Valley. And in that valley were thousands.
So are the butterflies symbolic? Because butterflies have a life cycle. Again, they're part of a life form's final stages of adulthood, where they consume enough to have nutrients to reproduce, and then reproduce and die. That's most butterflies. Some butterflies live a little bit longer in their adult form, especially if they have like a migratory pattern that they have to follow. But yeah, we need to let it play, because we're only 5 minutes in, and we only have 15 minutes.
Thousands of beings dancing, lots of joy and merriment. And when I wrote it all up weeks later, I said these were souls. I knew there were souls between lives, and that there was this incredible joy.
Oh my gosh, I love the visual. I can't help but stop again and say I love the visuals they use for the people. Just people dancing, people just getting down.
Joy and merriment going on, and it was all being fueled because up above were these swooping orbs, pure spiritual orbs of divine energy, these which I came to call angelic choirs when I had to put a label on them. But it was the anthems and chants and hymns that would thunder down from this beautiful chorus of angels above. It was
thundering hymns from above. Again, I don't know how sensory perception works in this plane. Yeah, I think he's a Christian. We'll see. He'll get to it here in a little bit. Paleologos, but is the because I have to a certain extent at least. I get overwhelmed. I'm not me, not as bad as a lot of people, but I got like sensory overload about some things, especially audible things. So I'm wondering if I'm going to be subject to that in heaven, but it wouldn't. I think it's because of the physical pressure on my eardrums, though. But I won't have eardrums when I'm dead. How do I hear this stuff? He is a fiction writer. Yeah, seems like it.
Incredible festivity. Sparkling waterfalls into crystal blue pools, and all of this joy and merriment, children playing, and dogs.
The bow tie is kind of sexy, I'm not going to lie.
Dogs jumping.
So
Incredible happiness.
Your senses are heightened and not contained and not
Correct.
confined.
Got to remember, our brain and our eyes and ears, they give us a very kind of diluted down version of
True. It is diluted.
reality compared to that. There, it's like drinking through a fire hose, an incredible ocean of this loving awareness. And
Fire hose of love. Do not Google that because that's going to bring up other stuff. But it's like drinking from a fire hose sounds terrifying to me with your soul.
for me, in that beautiful Gateway Valley realm, on the wing of that butterfly, my first awareness of the divine was a sense of a divine wind or the breath.
A producer, you are winning me over with these butterfly shots, though, I gotta say.
Of God, as I called it in some of my early writings.
And the flowers, not gonna lie.
That blew through, and it was amazing because even though the elements of the scene stayed the same, all of a sudden I realized the incredible power of that divine force, of that causal force of an infinitely loving God. Not a...
How is he infinitely... I don't know if he's Christian yet or not, Peter. I think he is, or claims to be.
Judging God, one of infinite love, of being home, of our spiritual essence, of the purity of our being. With comfort that really goes beyond any words.
So you felt comforted.
And that's why
you felt at peace.
Absolutely, and that is such a beautiful lesson that comes not just from my near-death experience, but from near-death experiences across all cultures, all nations, going back several thousand years. The stories are always of this beautiful peace, like we are home. This incredible joy and oneness, and that God force.
Well, I think it's this God force that he's talking about here. And again, I don't think that this speaks anything to the actual existence of an afterlife. I think that's actually unfalsifiable, the notion of an afterlife. But I don't think near-death experiences are the result of visiting the afterlife. I think that they're the result of the cocktail of chemicals that run your brain, releasing certain compositions, including the chemical makeup of DMT, in order to relax your brain and your body. So in the throes of death, you're not going berserk there in your death throes. You'll see it in some animals and things when they, especially prey species like deer, when they get attacked by a big cat or they get attacked by anything really, except for a crocodile, which will pull them underwater and drown them. But anything that uses like the choke out method to take down a prey species, you'll actually see them enter a state of their body's still twitching, but obviously they're no longer aware of their senses. I think that the way that our studies have shown, and this is mostly done with rodents, that we can see how their nerve endings, they shut down and draw back, and it triggers a release of a chemical cocktail in the brain that's saying, oh, going offline. Here's your shutdown screens to ease your brain into this shutdown mode, and you kind of crash out. Now, this speaks nothing to the existence or inexistence of an afterlife. Like I said, I am willing to debate about near-death experiences, but I don't think near-death experiences are a good example. If you want to compete with me, I absolutely, I got people bringing it up to me all the time. I'm absolutely happy to have a debate about near-death experiences. I have done a lot of research on the topic, so bring your A game, and I'll definitely discuss it with you. But let's let Dr. Alexander
pure,
continue.
infinite love is so healing. The good news is you don't need a near-death experience to know this. It turns out that it didn't all happen in that Gateway Valley. That in fact the music from those angelic choirs provided portals to higher and higher levels, all the way out to the core. And the core was infinite, inky blackness, but filled to overflowing with that God force of love. And all in the setting of the entire material universe and lower spiritual realms having been shrunk down to this complex oversphere that was there as a source of lessons and teaching. But in that realm was this incredible oneness with the divine, a sense that our...
So, Purple, that's kind of what I'm wondering too. Like, do you maintain the restrictions of your physical anatomy when you go to heaven? When you die in the real afterlife? That's what I want to know. Because he talks like he does. He talks like he's in his own body and stuff. But then he talks about transcending the human senses. So I don't know.
Very conscious awareness is directly connected. There's no separation between us and that God force. Of course, the God force is the pure love, with absolute unconditional love for all of creation.
If no one has created a channel called God Force, I'm going to go create that now, just because.
I wasn't alone. There was a beautiful young woman beside me on the butterfly wing, and she never spoke a word. She didn't have to. She was dressed in the very same simple garb and yet beautiful colors of all those thousands of beings.
So we wear clothes in heaven, and they're riding on a butterfly wing. I almost lost the narrative there because he got so much into talking about the feelings and everything going on around him. We're riding on a butterfly wing through some flowers right now. He's got a girl with him.
Beings dancing down below. And she looked at me with her sparkling blue eyes and high cheekbones, a broad smile, soft brown hair framing her beautiful face with a look of infinite love. And that, to me, was the essence of the journey. And I think the most important thing for me to bring back was how her...
Does she have her nose pierced?
Awareness came into my mind. And of course, it wasn't as words when it happened. But when I put it all to words weeks later and writing it all up, the message was very simple. And the thing is, I knew her so well from her mental, emotional connection with me in my mind. And yet, I realized, and this was especially haunting in the months after my coma when I started reading thousands of near-death experiences and saw that there was always a guardian angel who was somebody very crucial in your life.
Oh, definitely, Peter. Well, I mean, if the butterfly is big, if the people are small, well, there'd be physiological constraints both directions, right? But yeah, square cube law is going to put that butterfly down for the count.
And I remembered her so perfectly that I knew I'd never met her in my life. You know, that was the beautiful discovery 4 months after my coma. And of course, there's that beautiful picture. That's exactly...
So you didn't know who this was?
No.
I
had no idea. And it has to do with the fact that I had met my birth family about a year before my coma. But the reality is they were still suffering from the loss of that daughter. And so they didn't really want to talk about her too much. And you know, what they did share was what a beautiful, angelic, loving...
So he dreamt about her, he was on the butterfly with his sister that he never met, is what he's saying here. And then she died before he met them, and they told him about her and showed him pictures of her, and this was her, apparently. But that's the funny thing about memory. Like, the way you see someone in your memory it's not like a captured picture of them in your head, it's your brain rebuilds an image of them every time you think about them. Every time you think about that person and visualize them in your mind, your brain builds an image of them. It's not a captured, it's not like a stored image. The way your brain works doesn't allow for that. So every time you think of anything, it has to recreate it. It's kind of like those AI image generators that go through and kind of pick out the senses that you picked, what you visually, audibly, and tactily picked up about an individual, and builds an image of them in your mind. That's how that works. So when you have a mystery person in your dream, often your brain, when you wake up, will try to build an image of them. An input from an external input, like somebody showing you a picture of your long lost sister, might trigger that to fill your brain to fill in those blanks with her image.
Soul that she was. And of course, I was quite sad as a brother who never got to meet her in this world. And that's why when my birth sister, Kathy, she finally sent me a picture, and I received that picture about 4 months after my coma. And it turns out it was very important that at the same time, because I think I needed some opening in my awareness and in my mindset, at the same time I was reading a beautiful story in Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's book, Life After Death. And in that she tells a story of a 13-year-old girl who had was in coma, very sick medically, and in this beautiful journey she was welcomed to the heavenly realm by her brother. And he was demonstrated to her that power of unconditional love.
So you primed yourself with a book that told a story about a person seeing a sibling after you saw a mysterious person in your experience, and then you got a picture of your sister, and your brain said, "Oh, you're supposed to see your siblings because you've read it in this book." So your brain filled in those gaps. Yeah, I'm sure his wife would be thrilled about that. And he's married. He talks about his wife in this story.
Love and the beauty of that, of God in that realm, and then helped her make a decision to come back to this world. When she did, she was talking to her father about it. She said, "But I don't understand. I don't have a brother." And he said, "Well, you did, but he died 3 months before you were born, so we never told you about it." And that's when I looked up at the picture that I just received the afternoon before, and I collapsed on the ground, and my heart pounds, and I can't, even now, every time I revisit this story, chills running up and down my spine because of the beauty of that recognition of that guardian angel. And all of a sudden I realized
Are people guardian angels then? Or is the guardian angel just using the image of your sister and your or something that became the image of your sister in your mind to comfort you, and the guardian angel's really a external being, or are they people? Do we become guardian angels when we die?
We're deeply connected. And in fact, it's like she was looking at me in the picture that you showed a few minutes ago, as if to say, "Do you finally get it?"
Yeah.
Well, yes, Betsy, I finally get it. Well, the doctors had estimated early in the week that I had about a 10% chance.
10% chance.
Of living through it. After 7 days in coma, with just a horrible medical picture in terms of prognosis, they predicted that had gone down to a 2% chance of survival. But in that medical conference they held that Sunday morning, they recommended to the family stopping the antibiotics. And the reason for that is they thought there was no chance for my recovery. So when I did actually open my eyes on that Sunday morning, they were shocked. My brain was so completely savaged by this experience, I had no idea who these beings were standing by my bedside. My sisters, my sons, my former spouse, my mother. I didn't know who they were. All I remembered was where I'd been, this incredibly rich journey.
So this kind of implies that you aren't you when you die and go to heaven. Like, you forget everything about who you were and what you did, your life that you had. That's sad. It makes me sad. I don't want to go there. I love my kids and my parents and even my siblings, if we have our differences, but I don't want to forget everything that I've lived here. I love you guys. I don't want to forget you guys. I don't want to not remember who you are. I don't want to be like, oh, who's Maya? Who's Ring? I don't know those people. I don't want that to happen to me. I love you guys.
And I also had, for about 36 hours after I came back to life and they pulled out the breathing tube, I was kind of in and out of a crazy, paranoid, delusional ICU psychosis, a nightmare, back and forth in that world. But the memories from deep coma, in many ways, were far more real, vibrant, and alive than any of the rest of it. And that paranoid, delusional nightmare, those memories faded within about a week. The memories from the deep coma experience are as fresh today as if they happened yesterday.
Goodness.
You know, when millions and millions of people start sharing these stories, there is no doubt of the eternity of soul and the reality of this God.
I don't even know where God came into this, though. Was God the butterfly? Yeah. Anyway, so that was T&H Inspiration. They talk about stuff like this a lot on this channel. Let's go look at their content real quick before we move on. No, we're not going to play an auto video, though. Just to see what kind of things you can expect from this channel and see if maybe it's something we could revisit. The Secret Dark Power. The Secret of Dark Power. Interesting. Is that Chris Cornell? I love Chris Cornell. Philosophy of Musicians. I don't know if I'd listen to Chris Cornell's philosophy, though, because I'm not in a place where I am. Nor would I listen to Robin Williams' philosophy right now. These things did not end well. We had Bob Dylan last week, actually, on this same segment, but we talked about the rock stars who sold their souls to the devil kind of stuff. So, yeah. All right. So that was CreationWatch. We looked at T&H, Inspiration and Motivations video on the Afterlife. I didn't find it particularly compelling. If you did, that's fine. I would love to hear about what's compelling. If you've had a afterlife experience that you want to share that you think would be compelling to me, or even if you don't think it'd be compelling, you just want to share it down below. I might even read it if it's really interesting. Or if you've had any kind of supernatural experience for that matter, we love those here in the Hive. So send me your stuff. I have a couple of things that people have sent me. I'm not ignoring you. I'm very aware of your emails. So I need to compile enough of them to make it a show. So I can't just do 2 minutes on your one experience, but I can do, if I can get a half a dozen or so, I can do an hour on it, reading stories from submitted to me at the email down below. So you are free to do that, whether it's stories of religious experiences or supernatural experiences where you saw a cryptid and you want me to look at it or listen to the story and assess it. If you've got videos or photos or footage of any experiences, whether it's UFOs or ghosts or any of that stuff, please send it on over to the Hive. Again, it's right down below, xbugbot113x@gmail.com. And I will assess those, and I would love to do just a whole segment on stuff that people have submitted to me. So let's make that happen. We are about to wrap up here. I'm going to go into